Landlords are the worst. At least, that's what I believed before I met this one, a commercial landlord with a talent for cruelty. I was a lawyer renting office space in a large downtown building, sharing space with Aaron, a seasoned attorney who had a colorful way of handling things. One day, I was having lunch at the Vault, a basement restaurant with a unique charm. It had a massive, century-old bank vault that was part of the decor. "My landlord's trying to screw me over," Peter muttered between bites. "That's not surprising," I said, sipping my coffee. "He's a professional at it." Peter slid a letter across the table. It was a demand notice from the landlord, listing thousands in unpaid fees for maintenance, snow removal, and other nonsense, some dating back years. But the real kicker was at the bottom. Failure to pay will result in immediate lockout. I glanced at Peter. "You behind on rent?" "Not a cent," he said. "He's just mad because I'm leaving." Peter had found a new location for the vault, and the landlord wanted to squeeze every last dime out of him before he left. But then, Peter dropped the real bombshell. "He says I have to remove the vault before I go." I nearly choked on my coffee. "You mean that vault?" Peter nodded. "Lee says I have to restore the space to its original state." I let out a low whistle. The thing had to weigh over 100 tons. "Moving it would cost a small fortune. Your lawyer look at this?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "I'm screwed." I leaned back, thinking. Then, a slow grin spread across my face. "Peter, how much do you trust me?" He hesitated. "That depends. What's the plan?" That was when an idea struck me, one that would turn the tables on this landlord in a way he never expected. The following day, I spent hours poring over Peter's lease. The language was deliberate, designed to pin every possible responsibility on the tenant. Yet, it had one fatal flaw: the landlord's greed. I knew we could use that against him. After a few phone calls, I had set the trap. We had a real estate agent, Antoine, who owed me a favor, pose as a representative for a fictional financial institution. They contacted the landlord, expressing strong interest in the restaurant space, specifically because of the vault. The landlord, blinded by dollar signs, took the bait immediately. Days later, Peter and I met for lunch, with the landlord coincidentally seated at a nearby table. We confronted him directly, demanding he honor the clause about the vault's removal. Predictably, he laughed us off, bragging about his new tenant who needed the vault right where it was. We got his refusal in writing. Fast forward a month, and Peter was out of the space, leaving the vault untouched. The new tenant, non-existent. The landlord had trapped himself in his own scheme, now left with an unrentable basement occupied by an immovable bank vault. As word spread, potential tenants turned away upon realizing the logistical nightmare. The once powerful landlord found himself losing money on the space month after month. Meanwhile, Peter's new restaurant thrived, free from the clutches of his former landlord. Months later, Aaron and I grabbed drinks at a local bar. Between laughs, he mentioned that the landlord was still struggling to lease the space, his own greed having sealed his fate. We raised our glasses, toasting to justice served cold, but the story doesn't end there. About a year later, I received a call from an unexpected source, the landlord himself. His voice, once brimming with arrogance, now carried a desperate edge. "Look," he started, "I know we've had our differences, but I need legal counsel." I smirked. "What's the issue?" Turns out, he had finally managed to find a tenant willing to take the basement up-and-coming nightclub. But the story doesn't end there. About a year later, I received a call from an unexpected source, the landlord himself. His voice, once brimming with arrogance, now carried a desperate edge. "Look," he started, "I know we've had our differences, but I need legal counsel." I smirked. "What's the issue?" Turns out, he had finally managed to find a tenant willing to take the basement up-and-coming nightclub. However, the city's building inspector had caught wind of the vault situation, launching an investigation into whether it met safety codes. The verdict: the vault's sheer weight posed structural risks, meaning the landlord couldn't legally rent out the space until he either removed it at an astronomical cost or reinforced the foundation, which wasn't much cheaper. "You're a lawyer, you've got connections. Can you help?" he pleaded. I took a moment to relish the irony. "You tried to squeeze Peter for every cent. I reminded him. Now you want my help. There was a long silence. How much will it cost me? He finally asked. I named my price, a hefty one. To my surprise, he didn't even argue. He was that desperate. So, in the end, I did help him, but on my terms. I brokered a deal with a demolition contractor to remove the vault at an inflated rate, ensuring that both I and my contractor friend made a nice profit. The landlord, he took a financial beating so severe that he had to sell off a portion of his commercial holdings just to stay afloat. But there was one final twist. A few months later, Peter and I met again for coffee. He had an amused glint in his eye. You won't believe what I just heard, he said. That landlord, he had to buy back the vault. I stared at him. What? Yeah, Peter laughed. Turns out, someone tricked him into thinking there was a historical preservation clause attached to it. So after paying a fortune to get rid of it, he had to buy it back just to prove it wasn't a protected artifact. I couldn't help but laugh. I think that officially makes him the dumbest landlord in the city. Peter raised his cup to poetic justice. I clinked my coffee against his, to karma. Sometimes, karma just needs a little legal guidance.